He walked into the bank with a legitimate check for $180,000. 30 minutes later, his face was pressed against the cold marble floor, handcuffs cutting into his wrists, while customers recorded everything on their phones. The banker, who refused to cash his check, was absolutely certain she was stopping a fraud. She was so confident that she called the police, filed a report, and even gave a statement to the officers. What she didn't know was that this man's name would soon be on her screen, her boss's screen, and eventually every news channel across America. Her career, her reputation, everything she built over 15 years was about to crumble in less than 72 hours. Before we dive into what happened inside that bank, let me know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments. Detroit, London, Mumbai. I want to know how far this story reaches, because what happened here could happen anywhere. His name was Marcus Thompson, a 42-year-old contractor from Detroit who had spent the last 20 years building his business from the ground up. He started with a pickup truck, a toolbox, and a dream that refused to die despite every obstacle thrown in his path. By 2023, his construction company employed 17 people and had just completed the biggest project of his career, a complete renovation of a historic community center on the east side of Detroit. The check he carried that Tuesday morning represented 3 months of work, countless sleepless nights, and a contract that had been scrutinized, signed, and sealed by the city's procurement office. It was a cashier's check issued by Michigan Federal Bank, one of the most reputable institutions in the state. Marcus had banked with United Trust Bank for 8 years. He knew the branch on Woodward Avenue well. He'd deposited hundreds of checks there, taken out business loans, and even brought his daughter there to open her first savings account. The manager had attended his company's 5th anniversary celebration. This wasn't a stranger walking into an unknown bank. This was a valued customer conducting routine business. That morning, Marcus wore a black hoodie and jeans. He'd come straight from a job site where he'd been reviewing plans with his crew. His boots still had concrete dust on them. His hands showed the calluses of a man who didn't just manage construction projects but worked them. The branch wasn't particularly busy. 3 tellers were available when he approached the counter at approximately 10:17 a.m. The woman who called him forward was Patricia Brennan, a senior teller who'd worked at United Trust for 15 years. She had received multiple customer service awards. Her employee file showed 0 complaints. She was, by every measurable standard, a model employee. Marcus smiled, handed her the check, and provided his account information. Patricia looked at the check, then she looked at Marcus, then she looked at the check again. "This is a substantial amount," she said, her voice careful, measured. "It is," Marcus replied. "It's from the community center project. We finished it last month." Patricia turned the check over, examining it with an intensity that made Marcus shift his weight. She held it up to the light. She ran her finger across the signature line. "Sir, I'm going to need to verify this," she said, "of course." Marcus said, "Take your time." What happened next would later be described by Marcus's attorney as a textbook example of racial profiling. What Patricia would later claim was standard protocol for large sum transactions. Patricia walked away from the counter. She didn't go to a phone. She didn't consult a supervisor. She went directly to her computer terminal and began typing. Marcus watched her make 2 phone calls, both times glancing back at him over her shoulder. 15 minutes passed. Other customers came and went. Marcus remained standing at the counter, his patience wearing thin but his demeanor calm. He checked his phone. He had 3 meetings scheduled that afternoon. Patricia returned, but she wasn't alone. Behind her was Richard Morrison, the branch manager, a man Marcus had met at least a dozen times before. "Mr. Thompson," Richard said, his face unreadable, "we're having some difficulty verifying this check." "Difficulty? It's from Michigan Federal. You can call them directly. The routing number is right there. We've attempted to contact them. The situation is complicated." Marcus felt the first flutter of real concern. "Complicated how, sir? I'm going to have to ask you to wait while we sort this out. Please have a seat in our waiting area." "Richard, you know me. I've been banking here for 8 years. Just call Michigan Federal's verification line. This is a legitimate check from a legitimate contract with the city of Detroit. Richard's expression didn't change. I understand your frustration, but we have procedures. Please wait. Marcus walked to the waiting area, pulled out his phone, and called his attorney. The voicemail picked up. He called his accountant. Same result. He called the city's procurement office and actually got through to Sandra Chen, the contracts administrator who'd processed his payment. Sandra, it's Marcus Thompson. I'm at the bank trying to deposit the community center check, and they're telling me there's a problem verifying it. Sandra's confusion was audible. That's impossible. That check was issued 4 days ago. It's from one of our primary banking partners. Give me the branch number. I'll call them directly. While Marcus sat there, scrolling through emails to find documentation of the contract, Patricia was making another call. This one wasn't to Michigan Federal Bank. It was to the Detroit Police Department. I'd like to report a suspected fraud in progress, she said, her voice low but clear to the colleague standing next to her. We have a customer attempting to deposit what we believe is a forged check. The amount is substantial. Yes, he's still here. Yes, I'll keep him here. Please send officers. Marcus didn't know the police had been called. He was reading through the contract on his phone, finding the clause that specified payment terms, when 2 police officers walked through the bank's entrance. They walked directly toward him. Sir, stand up please, the first officer said. His name tag read Martinez. Marcus looked up, confused. I'm sorry, what's this about? Stand up and keep your hands where we can see them. The entire bank went silent. Every customer turned. A mother pulled her child closer. An elderly man stood up from his seat. Marcus stood slowly, his phone still in his hand. Officer, there's been some kind of mistake. I'm just here to deposit a check. Drop the phone and put your hands behind your back. Wait, what? Why, sir, put your hands behind your back now. Marcus's heart was pounding, but his mind was racing faster. He'd been through situations like this before, not in a bank, but he knew the drill. He knew that arguing, resisting, even asking too many questions could escalate things into tragedy. He'd watched the news. He knew the statistics. He was a black man being confronted by police officers in a public space over something he didn't understand. He put his hands behind his back. The cold metal of the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Officer Martinez guided him down to the floor, not roughly, but not gently either. Marcus's knees hit the marble, his face pressed against the cold stone. You're being detained for suspected fraud and identity theft, Martinez said. This is insane, Marcus said, his voice strained from the pressure on his chest. That check is legitimate. Call the city of Detroit. Call Michigan Federal Bank. Call my attorney. His number is in my phone. Patricia watched from behind the counter. Richard had disappeared into his office. Other customers had their phones out, recording. A woman near the door was streaming live on social media. Officer Martinez's partner, Officer Chen, picked up Marcus's phone from where it had fallen. She looked at the screen, which was still open to the city contract. Martinez, look at this, she said. Martinez glanced at the phone, then at Patricia. Ma'am, can you explain exactly what makes you believe this check is fraudulent? Patricia came out from behind the counter. She was holding the check in a plastic sleeve now, as if it were evidence. The amount is unusual. The customer's behavior was suspicious. We couldn't verify the check through our normal channels. What normal channels? Officer Chen asked. We attempted to contact the issuing bank. And what did they say? Patricia hesitated. We couldn't reach them immediately. So you called the police before confirming the check was actually fraudulent. We have a responsibility to protect our institution from fraud. Officer Chen looked at Martinez. Something unspoken passed between them. Martinez knelt beside Marcus. Sir, I'm going to help you sit up. Don't make any sudden movements. Marcus was pulled into a sitting position, his back against the wall, his hands still cuffed. His hoodie was dirty from the floor. He could see people still recording. Officer Chen made a call. It wasn't to the station. She'd found a number on Marcus's phone for Sandra Chen at the city procurement office and called it directly. This is Officer Angela Chen with Detroit PD. I'm at United Trust Bank on Woodward investigating a fraud complaint. Do you know a Marcus Thompson? Yes. He's here trying to deposit a check for $180,000. You issued it, when, 4 days ago, from Michigan Federal Bank, and this is legitimate. Okay, can you send verification to this number immediately? She hung up and looked at Patricia. The check is legitimate. It's payment for a city contract. The verification you needed was one phone call away. Patricia's face went pale. But we tried to call. Did you call the city? Did you call the customer's references? Did you ask for documentation before you called the police and had this man put in handcuffs in the middle of your bank? Richard emerged from his office. He'd apparently been on his own call. Officers, I've just spoken with Michigan Federal. They've confirmed the check is valid. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, Marcus said, his voice rising for the first time. A misunderstanding is getting someone's order wrong. This is something else entirely. Martinez unlocked the handcuffs. Sir, you're free to go. I apologize for this situation. You apologize. I was handcuffed. I was put on the floor like a criminal in front of all these people. My face is on how many phones right now, and you apologize. Marcus stood, rubbing his wrists. His hands were shaking. Not from fear now, but from rage. He looked at Patricia. Why did you assume the check was fake? I've been banking here for 8 years. 8 years. You've seen me dozens of times. What was different today? What made you so certain that I was committing fraud? Patricia said nothing. Her silence was louder than any answer she could have given. Richard stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, please let us make this right. Come into my office. We'll process your deposit immediately, and I assure you. Assure me of what? That you're sorry, that this was an accident, that you don't see color when you see me. Marcus picked up his phone, his hands still shaking. I want a copy of whatever report was filed. I want the names of everyone involved in this decision. And I want to know exactly what your procedures are, because I guarantee you, if I was white, I wouldn't have spent the last 30 minutes in handcuffs. One of the customers who'd been recording approached Marcus. Sir, I got everything on video, everything from when the police walked in. If you want a copy, I'll send it to you. Marcus nodded, gave the man his email address, and walked out of the bank. He didn't deposit the check. He left it on the counter. Outside, he sat in his truck for 10 minutes, trying to calm down enough to drive. His phone was already buzzing. The woman who'd been streaming on social media had tagged him. The video was spreading. By the time he drove away, the video had 200,000 views. By that evening, it had 2 million. By the next morning, United Trust Bank was trending on Twitter, and Patricia Brennan's name had been identified by internet sleuths digging through the bank's public employee directory. The news media picked up the story within 24 hours. Local Detroit stations ran it first, then national outlets, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, each with their own angle, but all showing the same footage. Marcus Thompson, a successful black businessman, in handcuffs on a bank floor because a teller assumed his legitimate check was fake. United Trust Bank released a statement at 2 p.m. the following day. We are aware of an incident that occurred at our Woodward Avenue branch. We are conducting a thorough internal investigation. United Trust Bank does not tolerate discrimination of any kind. The statement did nothing to stop the flood of criticism. The hashtag #BankingWhileBlack trended for 3 days. Customers began closing their accounts. Protests were organized outside multiple United Trust branches. Civil rights organizations called for federal investigations. Patricia Brennan was placed on administrative leave within 48 hours of the incident. Richard Morrison, the branch manager, was suspended. The bank's CEO, Janet Whitmore, was forced to make a public apology. We failed Marcus Thompson, she said in a press conference, her voice breaking slightly. We failed him as a customer, as a member of our community, and as a human being. What happened at our Woodward Avenue branch was unacceptable, and we are taking immediate action to ensure it never happens again. but the damage was done. Major corporate clients began pulling their accounts. The Michigan State Banking Commission opened a formal investigation. Several employees came forward with stories of similar incidents that had been quietly swept under the rug. Marcus Thompson hired Benjamin Goldstein, one of Detroit's most prominent civil rights attorneys. They filed a lawsuit not just against United Trust Bank, but against the broader banking industry, citing a pattern of discrimination that data would later support. Studies showed that black customers were significantly more likely to have legitimate checks flagged, transactions questioned, and police called on them for routine banking activities. 3 months after the incident, Patricia Brennan resigned. She released a statement through her attorney claiming she had followed bank policy and deeply regretted how the situation unfolded. She never explicitly apologized to Marcus. Richard Morrison was terminated. The bank claimed it was for failure to properly manage the situation and for not intervening before police were called. United Trust Bank settled with Marcus Thompson for an undisclosed amount, but sources close to the negotiation suggested it was in the 7-figure range. The settlement included a requirement that the bank implement comprehensive anti-discrimination training, establish an independent review board for fraud complaints involving minority customers, and release annual diversity reports. But for Marcus, it was never really about the money. 6 months after the incident, he sat down for an interview with a national news outlet. The video of his arrest had been viewed over 20 million times at that point. "People ask me if I'm angry," he said. "Of course I'm angry, but I'm more disappointed than angry. Disappointed that in 2023, I can work my entire life, build a successful business, do everything right, and still be treated like a criminal because of the color of my skin. Disappointed that a teller could look at me, look at a legitimate check, and assume the check was fake rather than consider that maybe, just maybe, a black man could earn $180,000 honestly." He paused, looked directly at the camera. "What happened to me happens every day. Most of it doesn't get recorded. Most victims don't have the resources to fight back. Most stories never make the news. I'm using my platform to shine a light on a system that treats black people as suspects first and customers second. That needs to change. Not with statements, not with apologies, with action." The interviewer asked what he hoped would come from his lawsuit and the publicity. Marcus smiled, but it was sad. "I hope that the next time a black person walks into a bank with a legitimate check, they don't have to wonder if they'll leave in handcuffs. I hope that tellers think twice before assuming fraud. I hope that managers intervene before they call the police. I hope that banks remember we're customers, we're human beings, and we deserve the same respect as everyone else." The segment ended with an update. 3 other banks in the Detroit area were now under investigation for similar incidents. 17 complaints had been filed with the State Banking Commission in the months following Marcus's story going viral. National banking organizations were being pressured to review their fraud detection protocols. Patricia Brennan never worked in banking again. Her name, forever linked to the incident, made her unhireable in the industry. She reportedly moved out of state. Marcus Thompson's business grew. Contractors, impressed by how he'd handled the situation, began reaching out with new projects. The publicity, while not sought, had made him a symbol of resilience. Within a year, he had to hire 10 more employees to handle the increased workload. He donated a portion of his settlement to organizations working on financial justice and supporting minority-owned businesses. He started speaking at conferences about discrimination in financial services. He became an advocate, not because he wanted to, but because the situation demanded it. The United Trust Bank branch on Woodward Avenue remained open, but foot traffic never fully recovered. Some called for boycotts. Others simply took their business elsewhere. The bank spent millions on rebranding, training, and community outreach, trying to repair damage that data suggested might be irreparable. And the video of Marcus Thompson, face pressed against cold marble, handcuffs on his wrists, continued to circulate online, a permanent reminder that discrimination doesn't always wear a hood. Sometimes it wears a bank teller's uniform and hides behind policies and procedures. Every time someone searches for banking discrimination, for racial profiling, for the cost of assumptions, Marcus's story appears. His name hit every news channel, not in shame, but in a harsh spotlight that exposed ugly truths about systems designed to protect some while scrutinizing others. Patricia Brennan rejected a black client's check. Her name, her career, her reputation all followed into that same spotlight, and America was forced, once again, to confront the question it's been asking for centuries. When will equal really mean equal? Drop a comment about where you're watching from and share this story. These stories need to be told. These conversations need to happen. And change only comes when enough people say enough is enough. Share this video and let me know your thoughts below.